All right, well, thanks for listening to the first half of the CGA Tour podcast episode. Now, just to get to kind of briefly hear some news and notes from the Arkansas game, but first, for Mike Gundy's press conference here earlier today, just want to go ahead here and start out by playing a clip here from his news conference on September 9th.
He made some plays. Yeah, he had a couple balls that we feel like eventually as the season goes on, he'll make those catches. But he didn't feel well. It's one of the things about athletics, college football, and daily life. There's times we don't feel good. We got to go to work. And, same thing with him. So I was proud of him for competing.
Now, just want to be clear here. That was a quote about Deshaun Stripling playing through an illness here this past weekend, which overall does make me feel a lot better, and kind of a great intro here for the Arkansas Oklahoma State football game recap here this past weekend in Stillwater. I did not pick the score of the game correctly. Some bettors who got it at the line at 7.5 did pick it correctly, even though the game was a double overtime game. Shout out to BS Man himself there with that stat, and kind of interesting point here that I learned earlier today from him. But with that being said here, Gundy's not wrong. Players, still show out there, make great plays, all type of stuff. But if you're watching the game for Oklahoma State and you're going, man, Stripling just does not look the same at all as he did against South Dakota State. Is he only able to do this against weaker opponents? Well, not the whole story. This game specifically here, he apparently was just, he was sick and needed some time to recover. So it makes me feel a little bit better about how Deshaun Stripling's game was this past weekend.
I'm going to go back into coach talk, or do you want me to tell you the truth?
The truth.
The truth?
Yes.
He was very inexpensive. The number of players that we go after that were ready to play at this level, we can't afford. So he was a good buy and a really quality young man that had success and has physical characteristics that we can work with Rob Glass and develop him. And so that's why he ended up here, in my opinion. So we saw some things that we felt like that we could develop into a good player at this level, and it wasn't going to cost us the money that we didn't have.
So Gundy there is talking about the Oklahoma State transfer, redshirt senior, 6'2", linebacker, defensive guy, whatever you want to say, but also the Big 12 newcomer of the week for week 2 here, Obi Ezigbo. And specifically here about how Obi was not that expensive because he transferred over from Gannon University, which is, I believe, also a familiar name here of where our defense coordinator, Brandon Nardo, also transferred from as well, too, or I guess you should say got promoted to or joined the coaching staff or whatever the right terminology is there. But with that being said, I think it's interesting that Gundy used the term, we don't have the funds or underpaid. And I know at least as a huge Oklahoma State fan, so, hey, the bias is there, of course. But I do know from following Oklahoma State athletics for 20 plus years that's kind of a theme here, especially during the NIL this past couple of years, where, hey, we just may not have the funds. We don't have the funds or the means to pay players to keep them here. Gundy talked a lot about, hey, don't really love the NIL at first. It seems like from now, he just kind of put a matter of fact, like, hey, we do not have the funds or the ability to pay players at this level and the amount of them to come here to Stillwater and play out the games. So Colin Oliver goes down. Obi Ezigbo joins the team basically on the field, but he's been part of the team the whole offseason, etc. He made a very really good impact, was Big 12 newcomer of the week, but also this quote specifically from Gundy does show a little bit how he's just not in love with the NIL theory, I guess, overall. When he's having to use terms like this of like pay players, etc., it doesn't necessarily come as like, hey, you know what, like the guys who we could afford. It's put in a very matter of fact, I guess. It doesn't seem like it's necessarily like praising the system or really evaluating it a ton. But then again, I'm not trying to get clickbaited here or put out some term of like, oh, Gundy doesn't like paying players. I'm sure he's fine with it now. He's adjusting just like all of us are trying to adjust to understand it at the end of the day. So interesting so far here. But one more quote here and then just the final recap of thoughts on the Arkansas game.
doesn't make a difference to me what they call. I just need consistency. Okay. And what upset me was we've done that multiple times and nobody ever said a word about it. And so those officials, it's not their fault either. It's the guy in charge. That's his fault. It's just like celebrations. So how are we going to call celebrations now? No, don't get me wrong. Bowman should have got flagged. He should have got 2 flags. Okay. But the point being is, what's a celebration in your mind might not be in mine. It's judgmental. And we need to clean that up. There's only one way to clean it up. No celebrations. Because how do we know? I see it differently than you do. But that was an issue. We had the cut block on the touchdown. We threw a touchdown to Brennan, right? Yeah. And they called it cut block based on the tackle box. So the tackle box is an imaginary spot that we use for blocking. We use for the quarterback to throw the ball away. And once the play's established based on where the outside leg of the tackle is and the outside leg of the tackle is, that tackle box is established. And that never moves. So if there's anything that goes on outside by rule that's illegal, it's a penalty. If there's anything that stays inside, it's not a penalty based on cut blocks, chop blocks, quarterback, all those things. We're getting inconsistencies on that. We shouldn't be.
Because there's another one where I got on this end zone where they threw a flag for dribbling, I guess pick playing, but they waved it off saying it wasn't pass interference. And that was
which is okay, because in that situation, I saw a receiver catch a ball. I saw an offensive player bump into a defensive player. So I'm not sure. Okay, I'm going to flag it, and then we're going to talk about it. Was it behind the line, if it's legal? And I'm going to talk to him, and we're going to make a decision and then pick it up. I'm good with that. I actually think that's good officiating, especially if they pick it up for us and it's our favor. Okay. But here's the issue I have. I don't have a problem with the SEC officials. I don't have a problem with the Big 12 officials. I got a problem with Steve Shaw, who's in charge. He needs to get him in one room and say, guys, this is what we're calling. Because when I go to play a game and the ACC's officiating, if they make 3 calls that they say, well, this is what we do in the ACC, and it hurts my team, then that's not fair to my team. I need to know what the rules are. I'll play by the rules. I just need to know what they are.
So specifically there, Gundy, he really goes on quite a rant and then is asked about it again, just with a little bit more prodding as well, too, from journalists of, hey, what do you think about the officiating? Any more thoughts? Have been contacted since Saturday, where Gundy was as heated as I've seen him heated on his sideline for OSU in quite some time at the officials. Now he's been heated at players before, been heated at the other opposing team, etc. But at officials specifically, there was an opportunity where Oklahoma State could have definitely just won the game in regulation, and basically they drew the Arkansas player off sides when they put a tight end in motion. Towards the end of the game on a 4th and 4, we ran out there to go line up. We have the timeouts. We could also just take the penalty either way and back up another 5 yards. It didn't matter. Just to punt it just a little bit farther, so be it. Still is probably going to go in their end zone. But with that being said, we basically put a tight end in motion. Gundy's saying, hey, we did this with Big 12 officials this whole offseason here as part of our practices to make sure we're with and all the guidelines. And then he names the head of officiating for the NCAA. And hey, we got to get him in the room. Steve Shaw is a specific person where it's not something that comes to mind. I mean, when you look it up immediately here, it just shows up basically, Stephen Norris Shaw, an actor, or, basically some other ambiguations here as well, too. But it doesn't pull up like the head of officiating for NCAA. So with that being said, I think Gundy's trying to make a point, and that's where Steve Shaw is named to the coordinator of officials. Like, he is the guy since December of 2019 here. And when Gundy's like specifically going after a guy, I do think it has a point. I do think it has a real big point when he's specifically naming someone and saying, hey, get it together, or at least get it together so all the officials are on the same page. Because what he's doing is deliberate. He's not saying the officiating was bad. He's not saying it was terrible. He's not going after any specific official. He's going after the head of officiating. And just saying we need to get them all in a room and get all the same things going on, because we could have in theory, but also in practice, should have won this game in regulation. It should have been offsides, new set of downs, they're out of timeouts, or they have to burn all of them. We can run out the clock with under a minute left. Like that's what should have happened there. And the fact that it didn't, and we still won, is very fortunate. But as an Oklahoma State fan for quite some time, and seeing at least the most recent example that paints a real clear image in my mind is the Central Michigan game, where that's counted as a loss. Afterwards, it shouldn't have been counted a loss. It should have been the end of the game. And we took that exact play from the Florida State game 1 year prior to that game. And Florida State wasn't called anything, and then we were. It is bizarre. So it is one of those things where I think Gundy has every right in his mind and every right in every Oklahoma State fan's mind to go, hey, listen, we just want to be clear. We want to be, here's what it is. Here's what the officials are saying. Here is where the line is. Do not cross it. Here's exactly what to do. Part A, B, C, and D, E, F, G, and outline it, with smaller letters in between and, Roman numerals, et cetera. Like, get as detailed as possible here so there's no ambiguous ruling that can come up later on. With all that being said here, too, I do want to talk about the Arkansas game and how that it still is shocking to me that Oklahoma State won, that my favorite team won at the end of the day. But with that being said, I'm really happy, of course, that we won. We covered the opening line spread, as I said earlier. I just am really amazed that this game fell our way, because if you look through all stats, third down completion percentage, turnovers, I think we're even on, if I remember correctly. Maybe we're up one, excuse me. We had a chance. We scored a touchdown. Brent Presley caught the ball in the end zone. You just heard the Gundy quote about that, but where it was ruled a chop block there and taken off, and then we only scored 3 points. Either this team is very, very good at halftime adjustments, and we don't really make in-game adjustments that much until halftime, or just like the pregame stuff, when it doesn't work, it really shows up. It doesn't work when our game plan just is out of the box and bad. We can still win games like we did, but the pregame plan clearly did not work. I mean, for whatever the defense wanted to do, they gave up 21 points in the first half, and the defense really, I'm not going to say we gave up 28, but like the defense got 7 back, I guess. I'll give them that. The offense didn't do anything either. But this is worrying that, hey, a mobile quarterback, we're going to see another couple mobile quarterbacks here through the rest of the Big 12 schedule. Avery Johnson's the next one that I'm looking at going, okay, K-State at K-State in a couple weeks. Like, that all of a sudden is a much scarier game after seeing what Taylon Green, who I don't think as talented as Avery Johnson. It's really hard to tell so far. Both are starting here either in their first couple of games in their careers or just first couple of games in the new team. But with that being said, I'm worried about the K-State game already. We haven't even played Tulsa this weekend, not let alone Utah at home there as well too. So that doesn't make me feel great. But at the same point, I'm going to really just go, hey, you know what? We're able to pull out wins that we maybe shouldn't win, that we can have things break our way. We can have guys create things that go, hey, you know what? Like, shouldn't have gone our way, but we still won. So we can have some things just roll our way here and there. Maybe that's more of a veteran presence as a team. But I'm not leaving the Arkansas game going, oh my gosh, look how good we are at X, Y, and Z. Like, let's get Ollie Gordon out in the flat more. Let's do some more things to get him the ball, period. Clearly, he's a good pass catcher. He caught the 2-point conversion. And also he got the touchdown, for us to win the game in double overtime. So how can we get Ollie Gordon the ball more often? He did create a huge chip block, 1.2 in the backfield for Bowman to get a pass off downfield. The tight end play was incredible as well, too. Tight end sells it, or tight end / fullback, cowboy back, sells that block for so long before going out in the open and the flat to catch that 30-plus yard catch. Like, it's those plays that I go, man, this team we could be really good. We could draw up some dynamic stuff. We could be really rolling in it. But then there's also the plays where I'm going, okay, Ollie Gordon he touched the ball 6 times in the first half, and he didn't get any yards to speak of. And he really didn't make any impacts on the game until the very, very end. But it's also not like our receiving game was great. So I'm going to come back to the first point I made here when I started talking, after the Tulsa interview with the Golden Hurricast. I really hope that Stripling being sick, Presley having to go up against some really tall, athletic, long defenders who are able to stick with him because he's a super fast guy. He's great footwork, but he's not the biggest guy. And then Rashad Owens, who I haven't heard anyone talk about yet, but also he was a household name last year to end the season, so I'm kind of worried about that a little bit. But then again, he had a couple plays that just his hands just were super strong, but just not strong enough for that one key moment that would have kept the drive alive in the first half or something close to it. So, I'm thinking about it more and more, and I'm going, I'm happy to always walk out with the win, but what does that mean for this game this weekend? But also going forward, I think against Tulsa this weekend, I think we win. I just gave out a 44-32 prediction. I'm actually thinking we go in by a little bit more just because I don't think my math works out perfectly with 32 points for them, with just having it all 7s and 3s. So I'm going to say revise a little bit and say 44-31, just because that's at least 4 touchdowns and a field goal for them. I really like us playing against Tulsa. I think it really could be a momentum builder this weekend as well too, and it could really be a good chance to see Oklahoma State kind of puff our chest a little bit and go, hey, here's an easier game. Like, we're playing against an opponent here who just lost to Arkansas State, granted by 4 at Arkansas State. Arkansas State's not horrible at all, and Tulsa did put up 60 plus points in their week 1 game. But all that being said, when the away fans think it won't be close and the line is 20 plus points, I think we'll win, not by 20, but I would not be shocked at all for us to win big. I would be shocked if this game is close after the first half, and that would be a real worrying sign. So I'm looking to the defense, seeing how, Obi and Nick Martin, Kendall Daniels, etc., Colin Clay, others can really show up on the defensive side, Corey Black too, and really just stop the Tulsa offense completely. Like, if we can shut them out, if we can just really stop them from scoring. They scored 21 points in the first half of their game last week against Arkansas State, and then they scored a field goal before the game ended. And that's how they lost their game. I just really hope we can slow them down to start out the game and then win it down the stretch. I definitely think it's possible. Would love to see some real good Oklahoma State orange in the end zone there in Tulsa, and just really a good momentum confidence builder coming out of this week against Tulsa, because the 2 games right after this one are not easy. So if we look shaky in this game, I'm going to be much more nervous about those next 2 games after this one, because this one should be kind of, hey, we're winning by just showing up. This one we should not need necessarily talent or play calling, to win and beat Tulsa. We should only need one of the 2. And I think we have the talent walking off the bus pretty good. When just heard their interview, they've got a redshirt freshman and a brand new O-line starting. Like, this should be the game where our defense really gets to their quarterback. We rack up a lot of sacks. We, again, for maybe the 3rd week in a row, have the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week, because this past week here, one heck of a cool thing to see that you've got in back-to-back weeks, safety Trey Rucker week 1, and then linebacker Nick Martin in week 2. So how about week 3 we get Corey Black or Kendall Daniels in there? Probably, maybe you get Obi. Hey, hats off to the guy. Showed up in second half of week 2 against an SEC team. Like, way to go. And I'll probably reference several more times how we beat an SEC opponent this season, because I can. And then when Arkansas looks like they may not win another game, then I'll stop. But until then, Oklahoma State fans should be very happy, excited, very, very excited for the rest of the season here, and have all the energy and optimism in the world. But at the same point, if you're feeling a little cardiac Cowboys coming on there in the 2nd or 3rd or 4th quarter of the Tulsa game, I don't want to think about what you're going to be feeling in the Utah or K-State game, or what I'll be feeling either. So fingers crossed, it's a good end of the non-conference slate. And we're back here talking up next week with Utah preview with the Utah podcast guys, and just going off and off about how awesome the game against Tulsa was, and how a momentum builder it is, and a confidence booster, et cetera, all those key catchphrases and terms for the Oklahoma State team. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. If you're not already, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram, as well as, shout out on YouTube too. Go leave a comment on there for the next episode, and whatever topics you guys are thinking, give me some feedback here as well too. Thank you so much to everyone who's recently tuned in and been listening, watching, all those good things. Podcast available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much again, and we'll catch you guys again soon.